Monotype.
Welcome to Creative Characters from Monotype, the show where we meet the people working at the intersection of type and everyday life. I'm your host, Graham, and today I'm chatting to Declan and Garech Stone. They are co-founders of the Stone Twins, an Amsterdam-based branding consultancy. They're also real-life twin brothers and all-round lovely guys. The Stone Twins are known for their ambitious, disruptive and outspoken ideas. They've created campaigns and identities for many iconic brands in the Netherlands, such as Heineken, the former Royal Dutch Mint, Massive Music and Adam Tower. They've also worked across a range of culture brands from fashion to music to beverage and everything in between. I became familiar with their work while I was living in Amsterdam and have been following them for the last decade or so. I wanted to bring them on the podcast because not only are their designs fantastic from a craft perspective, but there's also a playful intelligence in their work that gives it real depth. They've also a lot of wisdom to share with fellow designers, and they're great fun to be around.
Garech is constantly, I don't know if he likes doing it, but if I create something amazing, Garech won't acknowledge it. Maybe I'm being mean. Am I being mean, Garech?
No, but you're just shit.
So Cadley is here to preview this episode with me. Hi, Cadley.
Hi, Graham. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. So it's really lovely that you're here introing with me. It's usually Carl, and we do a bit of a play on calling each other lovely colleagues at this point. So hello, my lovely colleague.
Nice to see you. So tell me a little bit about your conversation with Declan and Garech. What did you talk about?
Well, yeah, we talked about everything, really. Their approach to visual branding, the importance of making their own stuff, balancing client work with projects that they're really passionate about, even their take on AI, what it's like to be identical twins who work together and who unfortunately finish each other's sentences as well. Yeah, they're both very personable and witty. Garech and Declan both live in the Netherlands. Garech lives in The Hague. Declan lives in Amsterdam. But they're originally from Ireland, and it's true to say that they both kissed the Blarney Stone. They attribute their humour and ability to telling a good story, and certainly to those Irish roots.
Yeah, I really appreciate some Irish storytelling, so look forward to hearing it in a design lens.
And I think designers looking for some inspiration and a good laugh will enjoy everything about this episode.
We could all use a good laugh these days, I think. Thank you so much for hosting, and we'll turn it over to you and the Stone Twins.
Welcome, Garech and Declan of the Stone Twins to Monotype Creative Characters. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on this episode today. Thanks for joining me. So I wanted to start by giving a little bit of background to how we came to meet. I've been living or was living in Amsterdam for the last 19 years. I was creative director of an agency called VBAT. And I think quite early on, I became familiar with your work. I think either via the work you did for Heineken or some other work for maybe ADCN or BNO. And it struck my kind of interest. Fantastic work, everything that I saw that you produced. And it was quite soon after that I actually came to meet you. You gave a fantastic talk at the Apple store in Amsterdam. And it kind of just stuck with me. And you quite soon after that sent me a really lovely little mailer, which was about the differences and the similarities between Ireland and the Netherlands. And it was really thoughtful. And it was a great kind of play on words and visuals. And from that moment on, I was really kind of into your work. I've seen it all over Amsterdam. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on this episode this afternoon. Yeah, let's go straight into it.
Well, thank you so much for a beautiful introduction. And also thank you for inviting us to participate in this podcast series. Hopefully we can add some insights and some inspiration. Thank you, Graham.
So I just want to clarify something for our audience who may not be familiar with you and your work. So you are actually twins. That's important to kind of point that out. It's not just a name. And it kind of struck me that you've spent your whole lives together as twins, and you work together as well. So what does that bring to your work? Do you think that your best ideas come from agreement or friction as twins?
Yes, it's a very good question. I think going back to the start, yes, of course, we're twins. We're identical twins. Well, obviously, we've known each other since we were born. So we've always had this element of trust.
Well, I wasn't a twin for about 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was first and Garech's the intruder. I was free, I was independent, my own social life. And then Garech pops along. So I've had this shadow. But no, seriously, it's been wonderful. As kids, we always shared stuff. We doubled up for a big Christmas present together. We made the decision to go to art school together. We just have never been individuals. And
well, it's not strictly true, but
no?
We've always had this inherent sense of collaboration and trust, mutual respect. So arguments about agreement or friction, I think they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Both of us studied at National College of Art and Design in Dublin. We graduated in 92, so we're quite old. After art school, we realized perhaps wasn't so healthy to have more or less exactly the same CVs. So we decided to go separate ways. So I emigrated to the middle of Ireland for about a year, and then I went to London for about 2 years. Declan came to Amsterdam via Rotterdam. So we've had 2 or 3 years, let's say, after leaving college, where we were completely separate. We worked for different agencies. We were exposed to different cultures. So apart from the realities of trying to exist as an individual, we also learned the fundamentals of the business, the practicalities, the type of things that you don't necessarily get in art school. So after 6-7 years of being in different agencies, we came together in 1999. That's when we set up the Stone Twins. And it just felt like
the right thing to do.
The right thing, but also it's just logical progression. Technology was becoming cheaper and cheaper. So we just realized that we could do this.
So what's wonderful as twins is the sense of trust, the sense of honesty with each other. I think it's really important in all our work, all our professions, to have a partner that tells you how it is. We constantly push each other. We can be quite critical. And that openness with each other allows us to push and push and push. And it's what drives us, And then, within each of us, we want to express, ourselves. So the formula just seems to work for us. I think there's a lot of colleagues our age who have, fallen out with business partners with disagreements or money, deadlines, whatever. And, well, we're brothers. So far, so good.
One of the things I've really enjoyed about seeing the work that you consistently put out is it's a lovely mix of concept and craft. Is there a kind of a 50-50 split there? Is one of you kind of more concept side, one craft, or do you kind of share those responsibilities, or is it a blend?
I think it's a blend or a flux, and there's a sense that, if we look back on different projects, it's not quite clear who came up with the original idea. But as the old adage goes, it's 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So I think a lot of the times the friction can come from execution, the desire for craft. Obviously, these days, we believe our business can only survive because of the sense of craft. You need to give people value. You need to get a sense of something authentic and not, an off-the-shelf solution.
Garech and myself, when we're lucky enough to get an assignment, we are in constant competition with each other. We get the briefing, we discuss it, and we go away. Garech comes up with a proposal, I come up with a proposal. And generally, to be fair to all our clients, we will present at least 2 routes, from expressive to somewhat conservative. And we all have egos. So I think, ultimately Garech will want his concept chosen. I'll want my concept chosen. And then, whatever it is chosen, then we just sit down together and then, talk about what's the best way to execute this. What budget do we have? What's the best way to answer the client's needs? And craft is very much a big part of that. As Garech said, especially in today's world, with all this AI and whatever, we will actually only survive, well, one, with a strong bespoke concept, and two, with the execution, with the craft. When it comes to craft, if the budget allows, we will get a proper craftsman. Recently, with a lovely project in Utrecht for the former Dutch Mint, we commissioned a classic typographer who created the most beautiful letters by hand. And that's something Garech and myself don't have that craft. And, equally true would be, if we need an illustrator or a photographer. So I think, craft is key to our business. And that's what drives us, actually. How can we make things better, more beautiful, and more expressive?
That's really interesting about the kind of the blended nature of your work, and you've been doing that for so long. I just wonder, if you were to work alone or apart for a year, how do you think that the work would change?
See, the thing is with Garech and me, both of us have wives who, they're constantly saying, well, are you going to ring Garech now about the summer holidays? Are you, you buy something for the house? Do you want to check that with your brother?
Yeah, it's a nightmare for the ladies.
For our wives.
And
the
kids.
When it comes to us as individuals, how could we work on our own? We haven't done that in years. So it could actually be quite liberating, where Garech is constantly, I don't know if he likes doing it, but if I create something amazing, Garech won't acknowledge it. Maybe I'm being mean. Am I being mean, Garech?
No, but you're just shit. Ultimately, all the best ideas, executions come from myself, and Declan just can't deal with it. So that goes back to the friction. No, but in all seriousness, actually midway through our studio time, we actually took 2 years out from each other. So Declan went to BBH in New York. He was head of digital there. And I stayed here in Amsterdam, and I was working with 180 advertising agency. And this was the peak 180 when we did all the global campaigns for Sony and Adidas and so on. So we did have our separate lives, our different experiences. But the question of, what would we do if we only had 1 year apart again? I guess I was joking with Declan, we'd probably be more productive, because there's a sense that we constantly have to ask each other for validation or approval. Along with that comes procrastination, so you put things off. But I think if you were stuck with the dilemma of just dealing with yourself and not having somebody looking over your shoulder, I guess we probably would be more productive.
Well, what I did find with that time out, for me at BBH, Garech at 180, I found I needed people to be more honest with me. When I was sharing ideas, thoughts, I wanted the same feedback back, So I find our creative world, quite egocentric, where there's a lot of individuals who get probably paid too much money, win too many awards.
But that's within the world of advertising.
It's very difficult to share and work with. Garech and myself can probably agree that we're not artists. So for us operating within our sector, we are at the whim of clients. They pay the bills. We answer their needs. And of course, we think it's important to have some sort of expression, self-expression. But we're not artists. So we need to try and understand the needs. What does our client want to do? What do they want to say? What do they want to sell? And it works for us to be a team, to be an honest team. And the idea of working apart as individuals again, we don't need to do that, I think, at this moment.
Well, the money was better then.
in the agency setup,
it's a good question, and it's obviously something that we ponder every now and again. I think, like most creative people, you need a new energy every few years, and those opportunities to go to New York or whatever don't come along that often. So when they come, you got to grab them and push yourself. Yeah, fundamentally, we're curious minds, so we're open.
So I wanted to jump on that Curious Minds thing as well. If I look at your body of work, quite often, particularly in branding projects, I'm seeing a really nice mix of visual and verbal identity in the mix. And I don't kind of see that a lot in branding proposals. I mean, it tends to be more visual. And I think you have a nice balance there. Is that a kind of position you've taken intentionally, that you kind of see the importance of language as much as you do visual in branding?
Yeah, well, we're Irish, so we grew up in this tradition of storytelling, of song, of music, and we constantly say, Garech and myself, what's the story?
What's the story?
What's the story, boss? What's up? And if that's a poster, a logo, some form on a page, ultimately we think, what's it saying? Of course, design can also just make you feel good, make you happy. But, growing up, studying design, we always loved the wit of early Pentagram, the extreme work of, let's say, Anton Baker, Robert Brown John. There was always like messaging in there that we always enjoyed. So, can a logo, a form tell a story? Yes, we think it can. So there's actually two words in Dutch for design. There's the word ontwerp, which is basically what's the idea, what's the concept with the design. So let's say that's the Paul Rand approach. And then there's the vormgeving, or to give form to something, which in a sense probably could be the Wim Crowell school. Both are equally valid, equally good. But I think, to answer your question, we do like things that tell a story. Constantly, Garech and myself are asking, what would my mother and father say? What would the man on the street say about this? What do they talk about? People don't talk about logos, we think. If they do, they're probably really sad people. They talk about the business, they talk about the service, they talk about the message, the exhibition.
There's a wonderful quote from Timur Kalman, and it goes something like, graphic design is a means, not an end, a language, not content. And I think that's something that appeals to us and we find quite compelling. The idea that, graphic design for us it's just part of our toolkit. As Declan said, perhaps because we're Irish, we're just natural storytellers. We just never shut up talking, as you've probably noticed the last 10 minutes. So when it comes to translating the needs or requirements of our clients, we naturally fall into, language, the verbal side of stuff. Even when we were teaching in the great design academy Eindhoven, we always had to convey to the students, how can you distill complexity in a few sentences? And that's quite a challenge. So if it's distilling complexity in a few sentences or distilling complexity in a few graphic strokes, that's the real challenge. So simple is hard. And I think for Declan and I, we like to think that, the verbal and the visual is something that goes hand in hand. There's an analogy also that we use about brands that, see a brand like a person. So of course, we all like to think we have the most beautiful wife or the most beautiful girlfriend or boyfriend. But if that person essentially doesn't have any substance or sense of wit or fun, you get pretty bored with that person. So it's no different to a brand. A brand has to be seen quite holistically, how it looks, how it talks, in some cases, how it sounds. So of course, sonic branding these days is a big thing.
How it smells, how it feels.
Yeah.
In the case of Adam Tower, so that was a project that's exactly 10 years this month. And the brief for that was create a name for this new real estate project. We had never worked on real estate before. It was our first time, but we see no difference between branding a tower as branding a new sneaker or a new football shirt. We came up with the name Amsterdam Dance and Music. Once we created this persona, it was a building of 22 stories. Everything just followed. The way it talked was just as important as how it looked. So we were involved with the art direction of the tower. If it was a disco elevator, if it was carpets for the members club. And yeah, just as creative people, I mean, we're all creative, but why stop at just a logo? That's just not interesting to us. If anything, just doing a logo in our mind is restrictive and it's boring. And I think, why not do it holistically? Why not do it all the way? Yeah, that was a unique project for us. What we think is deserving for clients is to give them something more, or give them a surprise, give them something that they never thought about. And if we're just going to do the wallpaper, if we're just going to do the chocolate sprinkles on the cake, that's not interesting to Garech and me. We actually want to be involved with making the cake.
And eating the cake as well.
Yeah. Probably a reason why we actually have ended up in the Netherlands. You know, studying in Dublin and in Ireland was the mystique of Dutch design. And yeah, what is that? What makes this country tick? What makes it work? And we've realized it's not so much the wallpaper, it's how the country actually functions, how it's actually built. If you're landing at Schiphol, you will notice the gridded fields, the landscape. God created the world, but the Dutch created the Netherlands. And this whole country just works like clockwork. Everything is designed, everything's systems. So if we're a little bit right brain, this left brainness of the Netherlands allows us to kind of function and to tell our story. So I think it's, the visual and verbal is super important, especially in today's world. We'll keep banging on about this during this conversation, I think. But yeah, for us to survive within our business, we need to be bespoke. I mean, on the visual and verbal, it was kind of funny because we kind of just landed into it where we're obviously giving quotes to clients, potential clients, and they're getting ever more and more demanding. So if Garech and myself can give a little bit extra, then yeah, we'll have done a good job. So, for example, it's about 15 years ago, Unpost, the postal services of Ireland, asked us to do a postage stamp. Lovely honour for any designer to do a stamp for the country where you're from. And the brief was to create a stamp to celebrate Dublin City of Literature. So Dublin has some great writers, Roddy Doyle, James Joyce, Oscar Wilde. And Garech and myself were just like, there's so much like cliche stuff about writers and literature in Dublin. What could be a new way of celebrating a city of literature? So we created a competition for teenagers in Ireland. We set up a designed template, and the brief was create a story, maximum 250 words about Dublin. And it was organised, funnily enough, with Roddy Doyle. And the winning story was a paragraph of text on a postage stamp. And it was kind of hilarious because the design itself was minimal. It was 3.5 point size text. I think it was Times New Roman. And when it was launched to great acclaim, the joke was, what the hell did the Stone Twins do? Where is actually the design? And we actually thought it was hilarious because, yeah, design to us should be, in a sense, invisible. As Garech said, the typography, in a sense, is just the language. Ultimately, the message, the story, that's the most important thing. I guess that's just how we work and what we like doing.
years ago, I bought a book that you produced called Logo RIP, which is essentially a graveyard of identities. I just wanted to hear a bit more about that book and how it came to life, and what does it take for a logo to truly die?
Yeah, thank you. I think that was a project from about 20 years ago, believe it or not. There was a reissue maybe 12 years ago where we updated it, and if anybody's interested to get the reissue, it's a much better book. But basically it was inspired by a world of branding that's kind of every few weeks there's some big rebrand or there's a new brand launched. And then also going back to all our collective design histories, there's a sense that when you're studying people like Paul Rand or Sal Bass or Alan Fletcher, all these greats who created some iconic logos, we felt it was a real shame when suddenly these logos were suddenly discarded, thrown in the dustbin, deemed defunct just because of a merger or an acquisition or a bankruptcy. Yeah, so logos at some point literally die. Obviously not really, but we get into that in the book. So Declan and I felt, just like the way there's architectural schemes to kind of commemorate and celebrate architecture and heritage, yeah, is there a way to preserving these iconic works of art or works of design? So that's where was the kind of starting point for the book. Actually, that was probably our first venture into kind of writing, actually, in the sense that we didn't have a budget to get a writer. So that was why we did it ourselves.
But it was interesting because we invited Ger Dunbar to write the introduction to the book. And as Garech said, this is going back 20 years. So Ger Dunbar, in his introduction, highlighted the fact that brand world was being taken over by guys in suits, where for every marketing specialist, blah, blah specialist, there was probably 10 of those guys for every one designer. And it was really a sign of the times, or a sign of the future to come, where there's a lot of blah, blah in our world. So these rebrands, these new brands, if you think of something like British Airways, it has this ribbon on the tail of its planes. That's nothing. If you compare it to something like the Speedbird from basically 100 years earlier, timeless classic. Aer Lingus, our own national carrier, thought it needed to change the Shamrock, and it made it oblique, gave it a bit of a drop shadow or something. Atrocious. Why? I don't know. So no one was, as Garech said, was documenting these marks. No one was calling out, hey, And I think, brand marks, and it's another thesis within the book, is they're not the domain of graphic designers, that they're actually part of everyone's lives. They the Pan Am logo has been in so many classic films. But as we're aware, something like Atari, they've come back from the dead. They still have equity. They're still worth money, of course. And,
you can see that in particular with a lot of the old car brands. So they still have so much inherent brand value, equity, and resonance with people and meaning. So brands like MG, bought by the Chinese, of course, and the power of a logo or a brand literally stuck on the grille of a electric vehicle. It's amazing the difference an old brand can make. So the thesis of the book is essentially no brand really dies, but there's some brands that are in the book that died for obvious reasons. In essence, it's a collection of iconic marks and logos that are in there for nostalgic reasons, like Commodore. So as kids growing up, our first home computer was a C64, Commodore 64, and when you realize that was on the chest of a Chelsea football shirt. So it's just ubiquitous. As Declan said, Pan Am back in the 80s was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. It was just as common as the Coca-Cola mark. So it was really just a desire, this questioning, what happened to that logo, this logo, and so on.
Garech and myself, we're not an authority on these old logos. It was just something we found of interest at the time, 20 odd years ago. All these mergers, acquisitions, bankruptcies. And for anyone out there who's listening, I think, we think it's important to create your own stuff. Looking back on that project, that gave us a good profile, and it got into a lot of the international journals. It got into a lot of international newspapers as well, actually. And there was traveling exhibitions with it. And, we never made any money from it, but it certainly got us a lot of coverage. For people out there, for creatives, create your own work, create your own stuff. I think today's world, and it would be, if we had the time, it would be the perfect online, platform. We were actually going to physical libraries, to find out stuff about all these brands. Of course, today's world, there's loads of Instagram accounts with classic logos. Quite superficial. They don't go deep enough. But I think, for people out there, just, do your stuff, whatever interests you, ask questions, make things. And that's all it was.
What I loved about the book was the premise, and you just explained that really well. And I love that thing about longevity as well. So I always found it fascinating that the logo of KLM, which was designed in, I think, 1961 by Henrian, is still the same, essentially, as it was the day it was released. And that's powerful, isn't it? We've seen so many brands that change year on year and become less beautiful, maybe, or simplified each time they're re-released. So there is something really nice about a brand that can actually have the confidence to kind of stick it with its identity for a long time, like KLM. So I thought that book was brilliant.
Yeah, there's a reason why a lot of those marks from the 60s are deemed logo classics, because when we went through art school at the time was, how will it fax? Yeah.
That was the criteria.
The criteria. I mean, you could equally say, how does it look on a golf ball or a baseball cap? And these marks, they need to work in black and white. So forget about the sonic stuff, forget about the motion, the dynamic blah blah stuff. How does it look on a baseball cap? And that's what's nice actually with in a sense Instagram or the profile icon. It does need to work really small.
There's a really nice phrase actually that Gert Umbar uses in the book, and he calls it stylistic durability. So I think when you've got in contemporary large branding firms where the suits do outnumber the designers and the creatives, then you get a tendency to move away from the craft and the fundamentals of design. So I think that's, as Declan has mentioned earlier, it's just the world we live in, but a lot of it is dictated by the press release. And I think it's just the fact that these days, when there's rebrands or new brands launched, there's much more work done in the kind of strategic and marketing nonsense in a way, and not so much work put into the fundamentals of the design. So basic criteria, as Declan said, how does it work small? How does it, reproduce in one color, and so on and so forth. So I think we're of the generation where we understand the basics, and hopefully that's comes through in our work.
I wanted to move on now to talk about essentially location branding. So you mentioned your work for Adam Tower, and that was a fantastic kind of 360 in a way. I remember even before the building opened, you created a fantastic kind of hoarding around the whole of the building, which set the kind of expectation really for the identity in a way. It was a lovely mix of visual and verbal identity. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit more about that location branding aspect of your work as well. And maybe if you were to redesign the identity of a country, not a brand, where would you begin?
I think like every assignment, we begin with asking questions. So I think we would ask, the inhabitants of that country or place, what do they want? To go back to the Adam Tower project, and just in case people don't know, the actual building used to be the headquarters of Shell here in Amsterdam. When we got the assignments, which was literally, can we have a new name for this tower? We literally spent maybe 1 hour, didn't we? Going back and forth on the ferry at the back of Amsterdam Central Station. And we were literally just asking anybody who was on the ferry, what do you call that tower over there? So nobody said Adam, but we got a sense of, well, how do people engage with it? How does it resonate with people? It's about forming connections, having relationships. And you can only know that by reaching out and talking in a very kind of inclusive and democratic way, I think.
The most famous towers in London at the moment are actually named by the public. They're actually nicknames. If it's the Shard or the Cheese Grater or the Gherkin.
The walkie-talkie.
Yeah, it's the man on the street, what do they call these things? That's how we approach it, So I've actually always loved, or lately, talking about country branding, some of the last Eurovision Song Contests have done quite a kind of a colourful job, of the Malmo edition where they the graphics, super graphics, and all that stuff. But I think
sorry, Nick, you never told me about this.
Really? Oh, I do.
Your
actually.
obsession with
the Eurovision.
Okay,
yeah. But
null point.
What's happening at the moment is there's kind of a blandification within design that we all need to be aware of. And you go to a lot of the design blogs, and if it's work from India to Italy to America, there's a lot of work that's looking the same. And I think, as creatives, as designers, we all need to be tap into us as individuals first, and tap into where we're from and who we are, what we are. And I think it's important to if we're all about diversity and we're all about difference, well, let's see it, because at the moment there's a lot of stuff looking the same. So we're Irish, so let's celebrate drink, let's celebrate fights,
no.
and Irish football.
Actually, just on that Irish thing, maybe 6 years ago, we got another really interesting brief from the Irish Postal Service, and it was literally to create a stamp to represent Irish identity. And it was in the brief to stay away or to avoid the usual Irish cliches like shamrocks, green fields, cows, drunken people, red-haired girls, so on. How do you reimagine the country where you come from? So we presented, as usual, a few different concepts. So the first concept we presented was a celebration of Irish people's obsession with the weather, particularly the rain. So just like the Inuits have over 100 words to describe snow, the Irish people have a similar number to describe the rain. So you've got loads of these really colourful expressions like it's pissing or there's a shower and so on. So that was one concept. And then the second concept was a celebration of Irish hospitality, which we believe is something quite unique with Irish people. So on Post, we're so impressed. They were like, great guys, let's go with rain this year. And then the next year, let's go with the hospitality one. The hospitality approach was the Irish expression, Céad Míle Fáilte, which literally translates as 100,000 welcomes. So we just asked them to print 100,000 stamps with the word welcome, which is fáilte in Irish. Yeah. So that was the concept.
Did we get paid twice then? Or once? Did they get 2 for 1?
Yeah, I'd have to check that.
Check the invoices.
Did this project also raise lots of questions from the public about what did the Stone twins do?
Well, it was hilarious because I got on national TV in Ireland and I was talking about the stamp, which was a major kick because I was not talking about the design, the typography. It was all little words with a mix of the Irish language and English with these rain expressions. And we were just talking about rain and what people talk about. And I think that's the smile in the mind aspect that Garech and myself like. We like to give to projects if we can engage the public. If people can talk about something, that will build a brand, build a conversation.
We actually like the term, it's conversational capital.
Mm-hmm.
So that's to be as part of what we'll have in a document, but essentially, what do people talk about? How do you excite them? How do you engage them? How do you keep them interested? So if it's a stamp or a new building, what's the takeaway? As we said at the start, the design very often just facilitates that, but nobody really talks about design. So it's, what is the design saying? I think with the hoarding you mentioned, was that the one with the playlist of colours?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a patchwork of all sorts of music-related and culture-related kind of words across the whole of the building.
Yeah, that was the building wrap. And it was up for 9 months. So there was massive text, hello, madam, references to multiple dance, rave songs, Go, Chemical Brothers.
Joy Division.
That was good fun. And
but,
I think, yeah.
But the better one, sorry to interrupt, it was actually just a hoarding that was probably 150 meters long.
It was much longer.
200 meters. So essentially it was just a series of chevrons in different colors, but each color was referencing a song.
Mm-hmm.
So Purple Rain, obvious example, Yellow, Coldplay. So if you looked closely at the hoarding, you could see the songs, and then there was a corresponding playlist on Spotify. So I think there was a sense that, it was what Declan was saying earlier about having a smile in the mind. That's an expression we like from the great Pentagram, of course, but it's the idea, what's the extra layer?
Some of our work, it's up for months. The building wrap was 9 months. So we don't need to say, hey, the office of the future, welcome to tomorrow, 200 square meters, free coffee, the usual real estate bullshit that you see on these hoardings. Why not have something cryptic? Why not give something extra? I mean, another hoarding that we did for a project in Utrecht was, we got it from the Gutenberg online resource, and we just republished Alice in Wonderland, the whole book on hoarding. Covered the building site for a few months, and if people were having their cheese sandwich in the sun, they could read Alice in Wonderland for free. And didn't say anything about square meters, office of the future. It was just a smile in the mind. Took them literally down a rabbit hole of Alice in Wonderland.
And if I kind of go back to that project, Adam Tower, 10 years ago, that side of the river, Amsterdam North, was really in need of redevelopment, wasn't it? And look at it now, NDSL Island is a go-to destination. And I think maybe I get this wrong, but I think probably one of the biggest compliments about the naming of Adam Tower is that wasn't there a building put up behind it that they tried to call Eve Tower as well?
Yep. This is some other real estate people piggybacking to success. I think, it's a compliment to us and the team of Adam, where it was such a huge success. Generally, major cities of the world have a river that is a waterway that's the heartbeat of the city. If that's the Thames in London, the Liffey in Dublin. And for some reason, this water at Central Station was like a division where no one went to Amsterdam North. And why would you? I mean, it was a closed area. It was the terrain of Royal Dutch Shell. So it wasn't open to the public, a lot of it, directly on the side of the station. So when we launched the brand, the building wrap was intentionally loud. It was as big as possible. Hello, I'm Adam. I'm also Amsterdam. So come on over. And 10 years later, it's toned down in color. It's toned down in messaging. But it was at the time somewhat obnoxious, but that was intentional. And that was also due to our client, who was very accepting of the ideas. And as creatives, designers, whatever we want to call ourselves, we can only be as good as our client allows us to be. There was bad language, naughty words used in the press pack and the PR stuff. And it was great. These were guys who were used to creating music festivals. So it's the ID&T Sensation, Mysteryland people. And they were used to, creating an event for a weekend, taking the tents down on the Monday. And Garech and myself actually found that quite liberating, where it was very much, get up and go, just do it. Let's worry about it later. I think, for people in brand world and advertising world, sometimes just too many meetings, too many discussions about projects.
It's too many internal PowerPoints and
designed by committee, and projects that started off fresh get watered down. So that was just one of those projects where it was direct line, decisions were made quickly, and it was fantastic. And I think, everyone can see it 10 years later that kind of still has that freshness, which is great, makes us proud.
Our only regret about that project is
the invoices.
Yeah, the invoices. Should have put some more zeros.
We didn't know when to stop.
Yeah, it was...
Get a life.
Around.
Yeah, Garech has no television.
Yeah, now we understand what it means to give value.
So let's fast forward a little bit. We find ourselves now in a world where AI is front and center in most of our kind of working world anyway. And you've experimented with AI in your work, and I'm really interested to hear about that. You created a fantastic viral campaign which reimagined design icons. I think Paul Rand was maybe one of them, where they brought to life with AI and they were commenting on it. I'd just like to hear about that kind of approach and how you see AI. Do you view it as a tool or a collaborator or even a threat?
Yeah, it's a good question. In general, both of us see it as something we have to embrace. I think we can make AI our slave, and let's not be afraid of it. I think we both have kids, and we see how they're using it in school and how it's just very instinctive and intuitive. So I think like automated spell checking on your email program, that's essentially AI. So if you can use it for yourself, great. We're both 55. We have come through the whole desktop revolution. So there's a sense that we've been through the grind. We understand the basics. So now with this AI tool, we feel, wow, it can be quite liberating. And because of our, let's say, knowledge, experience, wisdom, perhaps to use that word, we feel that we can utilize it. So with the series of films that you're referring to, it was a series of 3. So we reimagined Saul Bass, Alan Fletcher, and Paul Rand talking back in the 80s about the future. So it's not just about their vision on AI, but it's also their vision on what we mentioned earlier about how our industry has become very corporate and dominated by, kind of a sense of pragmatism and rationality, where it's all about the bottom line and not about creativity.
The future, well, it worries me.
Graphic design as a profession will cease to exist in 2025.
Everyone will be a designer in the future. Anyone. With a computer. Even the goddamn hairdresser.
Corporate twats and number crunchers will strip out the creativity.
So-called artificial intelligence. Idiots in suits. They'll see to that.
It was a way of challenging or filtering our kind of frustrations, thoughts, questions about the future and putting it through these design icons. That was the kind of premise. Yeah, they're on our YouTube channel. They're quite funny, we think, and prophetic.
You know, we want to believe that there's still a heart and a spirit in humanity and us as people. That's the kind of message of the 3 films. And AI is just an assistant, a tool for us all. When AI starts being the messenger, then that's not interesting to Garech and myself. We still believe in the human spirit.
It's about humanity. And I think once we can all retain that, then nobody should be afraid of AI. But of course, we've all seen Terminator, and we know where it can go wrong.
Come with me if you want to live.
As guys who've had very much a hands-on experience, as Garech said, both of us are in our 50s now. We've traveled a lot, we've read a lot, we've been through a lot. So our references, our knowledge will inform the prompt. For the younger generation, I think if they have no reference points, if they have no experience, then it's going to be tougher for them. So we're very accepting of AI and find it liberating that it will push us further. But that's, I think, because we have knowledge and the references.
But obviously there's the ethical side.
Mm-hmm.
So using what is potentially trademark infringement and so on. So yeah, there's the ethical side that we're very aware of. And I guess as a kind of a boutique studio, we could only make those 3 clips that you refer to because
we're independent.
We're a small independent agency. A lot of our colleagues in like the bigger networks were quite
fearful,
maybe even angry when we released those. We got some negative feedback from different people. We completely get that. For us, we just used them as a voice, as an exploration. Yeah. So that's interesting, and that's what the 3 clips are.
So self-expression is super important. Take risks, have something to say, super important.
Like I always say, a person without imagination is like a tea bag without hot water, utterly useless.
Sadly, our time's coming to an end, and I'd like to end with some quick-fire closing questions. So I'll throw a sentence at you and give me your first response. This is always really a nice way to end and wrap up. So firstly, agreement or disagreement?
Disagreement.
Agreement.
Secondly, words or images?
Images.
Words.
Yeah, you see. It's already going wrong.
This is going really well, isn't it? This is one that you can't do that trick with, though. One brand that's better named than designed.
Really good question. I don't know.
Amazon.
You don't like the smile in the logo? A to Z?
Cheesy looking vans. Boring. Boring website.
Next one. One logo that deserves to die. Maybe you just answered that one.
Mm-hmm. I think they wanted to die, but Volvo, the symbol.
Modernist or postmodernist?
Art Nouveau.
Clever or clear?
Clear.
If you had to swap roles for a week, who would struggle more?
Our wives.
Good answer. One word you think is overused in branding today?
Holistic.
I think essentially all the words, the whole transcript of our discussion today.
Mm-hmm. Authentic.
Storytelling.
Yeah.
Storytelling is a good one.
We touched on this a little bit. AI, tool, toy, or threat?
All of the above. Let's embrace it and give it a big hug and a kiss.
And finally, if the Stone Twins were a brand, what would the tagline be?
Think different.
Oh, no.
Someone already used that. Just do it. Oh, that's also used.
I like the lyric in a Frankie Goes Hollywood song. Live life like a diamond ring.
Live life like a diamond ring.
Yeah, we're big Frankie fans. We should have said that.
Yeah. Everybody create your fate.
Declan and Garech, I just want to say a big thank you to you both for coming on the episode with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you again. And I look forward to catching up with you in person next time I'm over in Amsterdam.
Fantastic. No, thank you so much also for your kind words, your hospitality. Yeah, hopefully you could hear us okay and we weren't barking or interrupting each other like we normally do.
We can go for a beer now.
To see what the Stone Twins are up to, check out their portfolio at stonetwins.com or follow them on Instagram at The Stone Twins.
Thanks for listening. If you like our show, please subscribe, rate us, and share with a friend. Creative Characters is brought to you by Monotype. It's produced by Christopher Olin and Mia Sullivan. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, so take care.